Hi, Marcia Woon Choy here again for another of our Tuesday tips on another very important topic, which is conquering fear in business. However, I hope all of you had an absolutely amazing Independence weekend. I know I went to the beach and had a grand time. Yes, I was social distancing, making sure that I kept my 6 feet away from people I didn't know, etc. And in addition to that, folks, we are hearing rain. And that is just absolutely wonderful because we need it. We just pray that it doesn't develop into a tropical depression. So, having just said that, that was my first fear, that it may develop into a tropical depression. So, anyway, our topic today is conquering fear. So, I'm going to show you my slides here a little bit so you can all see. So, conquering fear is perhaps the greatest and sneakiest obstacle to reaching our goals. And I know many of you know what I'm talking about. Sometimes we may think we're stalled because of other people's objections, who may say to you, boy, you may fail and know you can't do it. Insufficient resources or circumstances which are outside of our control. But a lot of time, this fear that keeps us from seeing a way around the barriers and the obstacles causes us to abandon our dreams. Now, folks, this is not a time for us to abandon our dreams. You know, there's so much doom and gloom and fear, and now the cases are spreading. And you know, sometimes you wake up and you just feel fear and dread, or you're not certain of the future. And because of what's happening, it's easy to feel that way. But I want to say, folks, I'm going to share some common fears that we will have. And I want to give you a couple ways in which you can mitigate that risk and, you know, conquer that fear. Now, I just want to remind you that in Action Coach, what we have always said is that the only failure is a failure to participate, which means we have to keep going. We never give up, and we keep trying new things. This is the new now. We can't go back. The past is the past, and the only way to move forward is to start embracing change. It's to start embracing new things and trying new things. And I don't know if you're on some of my earlier live streams, but I can tell you, this whole live stream thing here that I am doing with StreamYard and manipulating it and what to do with the slides and all of this, and I'm managing the controls myself, and I can easily do it now. But at first I was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this live stream? I see so many successful people do it. They easily do it, and and I'm like, okay, but guess what? I'm going to have to conquer that fear. I'm going to have to try something new. And now I can just do it. And it's not a problem. So the only fear in life, folks, is a failure to participate. But let's look at some of the common fears. So we're going to continue with this whole fear of failure. And with this fear of failure, we believe that if you don't succeed, so that's why we're afraid to try, you know. If we don't succeed, disaster will result. And we think all kind of catastrophic things are going to happen, and we absolutely expect the worst. And so, for example, here are some of the things we expect. That, boy, if I go take all my life savings, put it into this business, I let down my family. I will lose a house. I'll be humiliated. What people are going to say about me, you know, people are going to think. So people who fear failure, must learn, and we have to do it, is learn the difference between devastation and disappointment. Few outcomes in life are really devastating. That's an appropriate response. This whole thing of devastating only when, and think about it, your life or your health is at stake. So many of us are worried about we're going to get COVID and die, or our whole life, we could be threatened. Those things are devastating. So let me go to the first strategy to help you to overcome this fear of failure. So I really hope you're either taking notes, or you may be, you know, snapping a shot at the screen, or you're going to go back and watch the live stream. So envision. So strategy 1, envision the terrible consequences you fear. So think about it. Just think about, okay, just sit down and really just look at, okay, what are all the things that are fair? Then I want you to put on your rational thinking hat now and then analyze the situation rationally. How likely is it that this worst fear of mine will materialize? And then now forcefully challenge that fear by saying, okay, that could happen, but what would have to happen for that to happen? Talk to yourself now. I don't know if you're like me, but when I'm in the office working by myself, and people always laugh at me, my team. If I'm in the office I'm talking to the computer, I'm talking to myself. No, I'm not crazy, but it's just a way of how I think and how I work. So in this point, when you are so afraid, instead of sitting there and envisioning the terrible things and have it going through your head, is sit down, think about it, write down all the things, analyze it rationally like you would do any problem, and talk to yourself if necessary out loud. So here's an example that you can say to yourself rationally when you look at this fear that you think could happen and the devastating thing. Say instead, I've handled setbacks before, and many of us have. I can rise to the occasion. Now, I'm going to say to you folks, it's not going to feel natural at first, but do it anyway. Because like any skill, controlling catastrophic thinking takes practice. You notice the word I said? And I'm going to give you an example. I remember one time when I was working with the corporate bank I worked with when I was a vice president. As a young bank, I remember some situation occurred. And it could have had devastating impact on the bank. It was some mistake that I had made. It would have involved the clients, etc. And I remember I went home that weekend and I sat down and I worried myself into a tizzy. My blood pressure went up. I felt sick. I couldn't sleep. The kind of things that I envisioned. And the first thing that greeted me on Monday morning was statute of limitations has already passed. There is no case here. And Marcia, we're moving on. And I sat down there and I was going like, I died 1,000,000 times on the weekend. And now you're telling me it's okay. So a lot of times the fear of what we think can happen causes catastrophic thinking and the devastating impact it can have on your health. So you see where I'm going now? This is now where it can get devastating. Not because of something that has happened, but because of your thoughts of something that could happen now starts to have devastating impact on your health. So the important thing is to sit down and recognize, and I started to take notes of those things, even in the financial crisis of 2008 and 2009. When I had left the bank in 2007 to start my journey and I was doing very well, then the financial crisis hit. And I was in one state. Well, let me tell you something, folks. I handled that setback. And during that setback, I was led to this calling that I have of doing business coaching. I found Action Coach. And out of that, I arose to a new level and a new calling. Now, what I want to say to you folks, we have suffered many setbacks. And I would say to you to go back and write down all the things where you have had setbacks in the past and recognize that you rose to the occasion and you handled it. And if you handled it then, you can handle it now. Very important. Second strategy, make a list of everything in your life that didn't turn out as you planned, but ultimately worked out for the best. So I actually started to talk to you about it before. Now, some of you could say some of the things that didn't work out the way you planned it. For example, I didn't get the promotion I wanted, which made me quit my job and start my own business. That could be an example. I'm going to say to you, sometimes, and you have heard of so many people saying this, they were glad they were laid off because it was when they were made redundant that it forced them to sit down and really think about the potential and what they could do. And when you're at the bottom of the barrel, the only thing you can do is start to go back up. And they sat there and they came up with a business idea and then they launched it. Think about Colonel Sanders. When he retired, he had his pension check and he started KFC. Think about Rollins, who wrote what is the name of that again? Oh gosh, the name is going out of my head. The movie Harry Potter. So she probably had $500. She had 2 or 3 kids. She was there and she had this dream about writing a book. And in her absolute worst point of her life, when she was on her face, is when she came up and sat down and said, I'm going to continue writing this story. I'm going to have it inside of me. And look at J.K. Rowling today, billionaire, a woman with just a dream. So many times in our lives, things didn't turn out as we planned, but trust me, they ultimately worked out for the best. So I want you to think through those and make some of those lists. Come up with those lists. So what's the second fear now? So we dealt with the fear of failure and gave you some strategies there. The other one now is the fear of success. Sometimes we are stopped by the fear of what will happen if we do get what we want. So suppose all these grandiose dreams and things of having all this wealth and fame, and then what? What if it really happens? And that's why some people tend to make mistakes when they're close to accomplishing a goal, because they start to fear, they start to be paralyzed by that fear of what will happen. I'm getting too successful. Oh my gosh, I'm making too much money. People are now seeing me. I'm now on Facebook. I'm all over the place. I'm now on the news. Oh my gosh, I am becoming famous. This fear is often based on preconceptions, which is sometimes formed in childhood. And this comes sometimes from our parents' beliefs. What they may have said to us about what successful people are like and what this fame is going to cause and it's going to get to your head. Or sometimes about what we observed in the adults around us. So we bring that to the situation. So say, for example, successful people are, let's just use one of those terms that you may hear about successful people. And you have heard some people say it already. Boy, all them successful people, they are self-centered and they're ruthless. Once you become successful and you have too much money, you start to show your friends, you think you are too haughty, and they become self-centered, and then they become ruthless, and they'll do anything to increase their empires. That's an example of some of the things that we fear and what people have said in the past. And then if I do something well, this is the other one, people will expect more of me. So the more I keep doing well is the more they'll expect of me, and I'll be forced to work even harder. Folks, when I first started Action Coach, nobody really knew me because I was a vice president in Citibank, and the only people who really knew me as such were my clients and the bankers, and of course my circle of friends. However, when I started Action Coach now, I had to go public. I started now speaking. I had myself out there. I'm putting myself on social media. I am doing workshops. I'm out there doing speaking engagements. I am talking. And now I'm on the public stage. So now, and when you look out there, you Google my name, you can see a billion things coming up. So one thing I have to recognize is that as that started to happen and people start to look at you and people are following you, you say, boy, people are going to expect more of you and I'll be forced to work even harder. So those are some of the thoughts and the fears that come into your mind. Now, the strategy that I'm going to give you is this. When you are stuck at that point where you have gotten to this point and now you're going to be able to go up to the next level, but this fear of success starts to paralyze you, ask yourself this. What do I stand to gain by not succeeding? Will I gain more free time? Will I have less responsibility? I need to identify the assumptions that are underlying my thinking and ask, are they valid? And I'm going to give you an example here, just a simple example. For example, a manager in a company routinely avoided taking on challenges. And as a result, he was regularly passed over for promotions. You ever hear people say, boy, I don't really want to become any more senior than this, and I don't really want to take on any leadership role, because it is very challenging when you step into that role. I prefer to just sit in my little corner. So he was always passed over for promotions because he didn't show any ambition. When he was a child, the manager's father, a salesman, was on the road for long periods. And the son was afraid. So how you bring things from your past and your childhood. The son was afraid that being too successful would make him an absent father to his own children. So he had seen what success caused. And remember, what's important to him is his family. So his fear of success, and what made him afraid of that, was that if he became too successful, he would not have any time for his children. And he'd be an absent father, something that he had experienced. So once he acknowledged, okay, that was and let me use the word assumption, he then sought new responsibilities that could still bring him success, but yet not require him to spend long periods of time away from his family. Brad Chigos always said this to us when we were, when we were in training. And I remember he says it so many times. He said, decide on the kind of life you want and then design your business around it. And so that's what we need to do. Don't fear success, but instead say, what is the kind of lifestyle and life I want to live? And then choose and go after opportunities that will allow you to still be successful, but have that same lifestyle that you want. That's very important. Remember, you're the master of your destiny. Okay? The other one is the fear of being imperfect. Now, folks, a perfectionist, and I don't know if many of you know the DISC profiles, DISC. And one, D means dominant. If you don't know what DISC is, please message me afterwards, because I think it's a great tool to help you to understand yourself and help you to be able to communicate and lead other people, especially if you're a business person and you're building a team. But D means dominant, I is influential, S is stable, and C is compliant. Now, the C's tend to be what we call the perfectionists. And a perfectionist may avoid pursuing an opportunity if he or she isn't sure he will excel at the end, which means, you know something? I'm not going to do this thing because I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do it perfectly. So whether they're developing a new skill, going after a big client, or starting a conversation with a stranger, or even writing a book, whatever it is, doing a speech, they're going, I'm not going to do this because if I stand up there and I don't do it right, people are going to laugh at me. Perfectionists lose out. And this is one thing we have to recognize. They lose out on learning and growing from mistakes. You're going to learn and grow from your mistakes. Man, oh man, have I made many, especially when presenting, So perfectionists lose out on learning and growing from mistakes. My first live stream, when I did it, I was not as comfortable as I am now just talking to you. So everything we do, we're going to have to do it. And the first time may not be great. And if you wait for everything to be perfect, you'll never get anywhere. So they waste time on the details. I remember I spoke about the DISC profile, the C's. So if you're one of those compliant people where, listen, I have to dot the I and cross the T before I can move. And then go into analysis paralysis. You may know some of them, or you may be one of them. So they waste time on details, and because they're afraid to delegate. And the reason why they're afraid to delegate is they don't trust anyone else to do the job right. Who is like that as well is a D. So the D now doesn't want to, that's a dominant one, doesn't want to delegate because he's afraid that somebody else that he may give the task to may not do it as perfectly as he can. Does that sound like a lot of our business owners? And so we hug it up and we hold on to it because we're afraid that, listen, man, if I delegate it, this person not going to do it as well. And I may as well just take it back and do it myself. So they don't trust anyone else to do the job right. And if you spend a great deal of time, let's get back to the C again. The person wants to dot the I and cross the T. If you spend a great deal of time planning for every contingency rather than taking action, you may be paralyzed by perfectionism. So this is another thing that we have to deal with. And some of us, we should go out and launch a new product. We should start a new initiative. We should get up and do a presentation to our client. We should go out and initiate a discussion or write a speech, but we're waiting for it to be absolutely perfect. And let me tell you something. I don't know if you remember the first video I played when I started this live stream, which is now no opportunity wait. No opportunity wait. So if you sit down there and be paralyzed by perfectionism, the opportunity is going to pass you. All right. So what's the strategy? If you're a perfectionist, first of all, start off by delegating a minor task. Yes, so delegate something that is low risk. That's how we actually teach you in Action Coach to actually start to get things off of your plate as a business owner. So when we coach business owners, in order for us to get them to work on the business, we have to take away the things where they're working in the business. So we say, okay, what are some of these routine things, these lower things that you don't need to be doing yourself that you can delegate? So delegate a minor task first. And for God's sake, keep quiet. So when you delegate it, keep quiet if it's done adequately, but not brilliantly, meaning it don't have to be done exactly the way you do it, Just make sure practicing non-perfectionism on other people can help you to become more tolerant of yourself. Now, I'm going to tell you this, folks. I'm a high D, 98 out of 100, high I, 98 out of 100 on the DISC profile. And so, as a D, if I delegate, I am also not very, very tolerant. And so I have to manage that by saying, okay, this person, I'm delegating a task. They're not doing it as brilliantly as I would have done it. But something, I'm going to have to keep quiet and say, is there any major thing that's wrong? Is it still accomplishing the outcome? And if it is, then just let it be. This is how the person is doing it. It may not be perfect, and with practice, they will get better. And this is what you need to practice so you get better if you are that fear of being imperfect. Practicing non-perfectionism, not expecting perfectionism on other people, can help you to become more tolerant yourself. Strategy 2. So the first one, practice that. Second one, try a hobby that you might like, but think you won't do well at. So whether it's golf or scuba diving or whatever. Take a jewelry making class if you're all thumbs, or a comedy workshop if you have trouble thinking on your feet. And trust me, folks, if you try something new as a hobby, remember you're not used to doing it. So if it's something new, you're going to have to struggle to learn it. So your confidence and ability to take risks will grow as you learn to survive looking silly. So the first time that I did platform diving was when I was in school. So I used to swim competitively, and then I decided, okay, I want to try. I see all these nice people standing at the top of these diving platforms, and they're jumping down, and they look absolutely straight, perfect 10 score. And I said, okay, I would like to try that. Well, let me tell you, the first time I did a backflip, I don't even know what side of me I landed on, but it certainly wasn't a 10. Right? So eventually, as I got better and I practiced, then I was able to score perfect 10s. And if you go on my social media platform, you'll see me doing a very perfect 10 out at Chucker Cove off of the cliff at the end of a nice ATV ride. Okay? So even at that stage 3 years ago, I was still able to do a nice 10 out of 10 dive. So your confidence and ability to take risks will grow as you learn to survive looking what? Silly. Now, what's the other fear? This one is the fear of disapproval. Now, some of you know what that is. And especially in younger people. If you feel, especially with this whole social media age now, if you feel that you must be liked by everyone, every post you make. I was at the beach the other day and I saw these young people, and they were there taking all kind of pictures in their swimsuits, and they were posting. And as they posted, for every single like, for every single comment, there were squeals of excitement. Why? Because they want everyone to like them. So if you feel you must be liked by everyone, you'll waste energy. And I'm going to say this, you're going to waste energy trying to satisfy people who are insignificant in your life. I remember Darren Hardy of Success Magazine saying this. I worry so much about what people think. And he says, listen, man, if you go to your funeral, think about it. Everybody will come to the service. Very few people go to the graveside. And he says those people who go to the graveside are really the ones who are your friends. So stop trying to satisfy people who are insignificant in your life. Instead, be more concerned about the people who matter. Right? Because all of those people who don't go to the graveside, who just come to eat up the food, they're gone, they're not really significant. So, don't try to satisfy everybody, wasting your energy doing that, or you may postpone making overtures to people who could help you. All right, so postpone doing that. So let me say now what you want to be doing. The first strategy is create a support team of friends and family members that you can rely on to build you up when you're down. Turn to them when you feel or anticipate being rejected. They can remind you of what you're doing right. Now, I want you to think about this as being, John Maxwell says this. He says you need to have that inner circle. We need to have always an inner circle, especially in business. Because if not, your fears will sometime run away. And the key here is this. You need to create this team or this inner circle before you need it. Because when you need it, it's not the time to try and build it. You need it, so make sure that you have it built even before. And how you do that is start by giving of yourself to others so that you can have a network when you need it, folks, especially when you're a business owner. This is why over the 10 years, I've spoken to so many business owners, hundreds, and coached so many. And if there's one thing a business owner will tell you is this: it's lonely. I feel so lonely at the top. I feel the weight of everything. And I remembered during that financial crisis when my business was tanking and I was in depression, and I was at my lowest, my inner, that team, that set of persons that I turned to was my best friend, Christine McMorris, and my sister. They were key to me, and they cheered me on and believed in me, and another friend of mine in Florida. And I was able to turn to them, and they were able to remind me of why I did what I did and what my purpose in life was, and that I was capable and that I could do this. We need to have those people around us so that when we need them, they're there. But how you do that? Remember, relationships are like an emotional bank account. You're either making deposits or you're making withdrawals. And folks, I've made many a withdrawal over my lifetime and lost some friends. So it's very important that we work on making those emotional deposits, because it is when you start giving to others that you will have a network that you can draw on when you need it. And I'm talking really solid inner circle. Very important. So that's strategy one. The other strategy is this: keep an ego file. Now, over all my years, I remember, especially my first seminars, I used to get so many emails as you'd finish a seminar and, it was just 2 hours and you presented the material, and then you would get these emails at night from people saying, my God, it sounded as if you were just talking to me, and what you were able to do, and coach, you just changed my life. You don't even know what it means. Or when the husbands and wives would call you to say the impact that you have had on their husband or on their wife, and just the transformation that they had seen, because our purpose is to transform people's lives and their businesses. And I started to keep those emails, and then there were just so many of them. So I want you to remember this. Keep that ego file. Save those letters and those emails where people complimented or thanked you for great things that you did, for the impact that you had on their life. And then when you need reassurance, when you feel as if, listen, man, I'm moving ahead, and yes, it may not be perfect. Yes, it may not be great. I don't know if everybody's going to like me, but I believe in what I'm doing. I believe this is what I'm called to. Don't fear the disapproval. When you feel it, just go and say, listen, man, I'm going to my ego file. This is what people I've helped have said. This is what people have said about me and what I've done. And you read it over for reassurance, and read through that file. Just sit down and go through it. It's the same thing you do with a gratitude journal. Give thanks. And you go back through that journal and say, what are all the things I need to be thankful for? So if you don't have an ego file now, you know where they are, the emails are there. Just go and get them, pull them together, put them as testimonials, put them as notes or letters, but put them together, so that in that time when you feel down or you feel that fear of disapproval and think that everybody is not going to like me, go back and read those emails and those letters. All right, what's the next fear? Oh, this is the big one. It's called the fear of change. So in Action Coach, we always say, as we're coaching, we have got to recognize that if we want to achieve new things, we're going to have to expand our comfort zone. I didn't say come out of it, I said expand. What that means, we're going to have to learn new skills and learn new things. And it's as a result of learning those things and doing them over and over till they become a part of your comfort zone, because you're doing them so well. And that's called growth. So even when you want things to be different, and we do. So all of us are here in the new normal, and we want things to be different. But you know what it is requiring us to do in this new normal? It is requiring us to change. Because the things that we used to do, we can't do it anymore. I used to have workshops in person in our office and locations. I can't do it anymore. I have to be doing this route. I have to be doing webinars. It's not the same. And change can make us feel uncomfortable and vulnerable. But you know something? I was a speaker at our global conference on Friday. And my first tip when I was speaking to the coaches around the world was this: reconnect with your why. Because we are going to have to dig deep and do things differently. And we have to have a solid why, or else we will not change. So change can make us feel uncomfortable, and it may make us feel vulnerable. So what do we need to do? And this is it. Build as much familiarity as possible into any new situation. And this is how we're going to do it. Any new situation you're going to do, you're going to identify some daily routines that make you feel anchored and content, from walking the dog to reading the paper over your morning coffee. Pick at least 3 of these anchors and resolve to continue doing them every day, no matter what else happens. And the reason is this, even when you're trying to do, so, Darren Hardy always said we must bookend our days, because he says normally we can manage what happens between when we wake up and before we go to work, and from when we come home from work and go to sleep. But what happens in between, in the middle, is chaos. And a lot of times, as we're going through this change, we want to bookend our days with having a routine in the morning. So my routine every morning is I get up at 4:30 in the morning. I come downstairs, I make my coffee. I then jump on the treadmill or do whatever exercise there is. And then I do my devotions. I spend time with God. And then I go into the office. And then when I come home, I go through another routine, learning and development. Yes, I may watch some TV, not all night, and I'll do certain things, and then I will go to sleep by a certain time. So book in your day so that you feel some familiarity. Have things that you know are consistent morning and afternoon as you try new things in the middle of the day, so you don't feel like your whole life is out of control. So for example, let's use a different thing as well, sales calls. So it is difficult to make sales calls. So I start each morning. So, lots of us don't like sales calls, right? And I'm going to tell you right now, doing sales has changed. Because whereas before you could go to a network and meet with people and in large groups and so on, you're now a little concerned because it's not so safe. So you're going to have to do what? Pick up the phone. Now, there are some people saying, boy, I don't like to cold call. Well, guess what? Get up. Expand your comfort zone. You got to try new things. It's time to change. So if it is difficult to make sales calls, so I start each morning by doing what? I read a nice motivational quote to give me some inspiration, or I read a book, something out of a book that's going to give me that oomph. And I have my favorite coffee. And then I'm prepared to make my calls. So go through a pre-call routine. Tony Robbins, I don't know if you remember him, Anthony Robbins, the man, Unleash Your Power, that people go up into Chicago and those places, and he makes them walk on coals at the end of their 3-day conference. And one of the things he said is that he had the distinction when he was a young man of being the only business development person in the history of Jim Rohn, where everybody, he was tasked with filling Jim Rohn's workshops. And he said, everybody he went to, he converted. There was nobody who he did not convert. The only person to have that distinction, he said. And he said what he would do on his way to his sales calls is that he would have this mantra that he would recite. He would have this pre-call routine, and he would say this certain statement. He would get himself all pumped up, and what he would do, and he still does that even before he starts his speeches nowadays. So have your pre-call routine. Anything that you're afraid of, do a little routine before. That will help you and pump you up to make those calls. All right. So that's for the fear of change. I'm going to give you some bonus strategies now because we're coming up on the end of this. As a bonus, take a leap of faith. Folks, this is the new now, not even the new normal, the new now. Things are changing rapidly. Cases are rising. More people are dying. You're hearing about vaccine. You're hearing about we're going to have to live with COVID. So we have to take a leap of faith and overcome our fears. People often talk themselves out of what they want because they're unsure of the outcome. Let me tell you right now, folks, everybody is unsure of the outcome. Nobody, if there's anybody who can tell you what's going to happen 2 weeks from now, they're lying because they don't. So don't talk yourself out of what it is that you want to do or become because you're unsure of the outcome. So for example, if you'd like to move to Montego Bay, then you may say, well, if I move to Montego Bay, I'm not sure how I'm going to find a job. So doing research is smart on how to get a job down there and doing research in Montego Bay, but it can take you only so far and no more. You may have to take some more concrete action to find out what the next steps are. Don't be afraid to learn as you go. So sometimes, listen, you're going to have to make that leap of faith. Yes, I'm going to have to move to Mandeville. I'm going to go to Montego Bay. I'm not sure if I'm going to find a job. I'm not sure what school the children are going to get into. But if you went through all of that, then you would never move. So don't be afraid to learn as you go. So when you get down there, all right, where are the places? Who do I need to talk to? So don't be afraid to learn as you go. So take a leap of faith. The other thing is, a lot of times we go with, boy, what if this happened? And what if that happened? And you ever notice all the what ifs are negative? They're never, what if I really succeed? What if I make a whole ton of money? What if I'm able to? No, we don't say that. We say instead, what if I fail? What if nobody likes me? What if it doesn't work out? We tend to focus on the what ifs and the unknowns that tend to frighten us. But there are always positive possibilities too. So when you find yourself starting to have some of these fears, turn it around and say, what if? Remember, I told you in the first session, your sphere of control. What you can control, folks, is what you put into your mind. You can control your thoughts. That's the one thing we can control. So instead, when you start to think those what ifs which are negative, which start to paralyze you, say, stop it. Come on. Why am I only thinking what ifs which are negative? Stop the thought. You are the only one that has the power to do that. And instead say, what if this positive thing happens? And this positive, so it forces you. Remember law of attraction? Whatever you think about is what you're going to attract into your life. So start what if in positive things. So there are always positive possibilities. So for example, if you were to become pregnant, when I saw my sister become pregnant with her second child, she was very overwhelmed. But you started to think sometimes, but what if the baby is not healthy? Or what if we can't handle another child? Or what if we can't manage financially dealing with this? And so a friend once asked, but what if this child that you have, this new child, becomes the president? What if this new child that you have discovers a cure for cancer? What if this new child brings you and your husband joy you can't even imagine? You notice how you slip that around? I think that's enough said on that topic. Now, the third bonus strategy is this: keep your pipeline full. What does that mean? Continually build your network of contacts. Be generous with your time and expertise. You see, now you're having to building so many new relationships, meeting so much people. And by the way, I'm meeting them on the phone and virtually. In my complex, I've got to know so many more people. I go out and I'm meeting more people. Building and nourishing contacts creates a safety net when you are in need. So remember now, relationships are important and especially important in business. So keep your pipeline full. Keep constantly building your network of contacts in different spheres, in different industries, and be generous with your time and with your expertise. So folks, I am going to, at the end of this live stream, I'm going to do another post where I'm going to post out the notes from this so you can also have it as a blog so that you can read it over again, because I think fear right now is what many business owners are feeling. Fear of uncertainty, so many different things, fear of failure, fear of all the different fears I spoke about. And so we really want to prepare ourselves to be able to deal with these fears. All right, so the last thing I want to do now is to talk about our upcoming Candid Conversation that we're going to be having this Thursday. So remember, every Tuesday, you have moi on Tuesday doing business tips. And then on Thursdays, we have a Candid Conversation with the charming Coach Arlene Martin and the debonair Ian Nita from the Jamaica Chamber of Commerce. And the two of them together are really amazing when they start to interview our guests. So who are our guests going to be? You know, I'm looking forward to this discussion because it's on the topic of tourism. I love Jamaica. I love Jamaica. I am a world traveler. Normally, I would have been in Rio, Brazil this year for our global conference, but we couldn't. I'm always traveling. And I always come back and I say, Jamaica is the most beautiful place on this earth. It's a jewel of the Caribbean. And right now, tourism is significantly impacted by this COVID-19 crisis. So we're going to be talking with Nicola Madden-Gregg, and she's a group director of marketing and sales for the Courtly Group of Hotels. And then in addition to that, we will also Courtly Hospitality Group. Sorry, I have to make sure I call that right. It's the Courtly Hospitality Group. And let me tell you who is in the group. It's the Courtly Hotel and Suites. It's the Knutsford Court Hotel. It's the Holiday Inn Resorts. And it's the Pegasus Hotel. So let me just make sure that I got that right, because my good friend Nicola Madden-Gregg will not be happy with me. All right. And we will also, that's from Kingston, and she's also going to be speaking from the JHTA level as well, Jamaica Hotel and Tourism Association. So we'll also have with us Robin Russell, and he is the general manager of Deja Resort in Montego Bay. And I'm going to tell you, folks, Montego Bay, I went to Otrios, and it was in Otrios when I went down to Otrios 7 weeks ago, that I came up with this idea of having this Candid Conversation series. And this is how it was born. And then I said, you know, I want to go to Montego Bay. And I went there 4 weeks ago, and I was really devastated because, yes, we had tourists, but they were inside the resort. So I didn't see any walking up and down. So what we're seeing is that the industries that depend on tourism are still not getting the tourists. And the place was absolutely quiet. So we're going to hear from Robin as he gives us his perspective of what's happening in Montego Bay and the impact it is having, because I don't think people really realize. But then we don't want it to just be talking about the doom and gloom, but also to be saying, what can we do as business, Jamaica Chamber of Commerce, Voice of Business, as people, JHTA, you know, JTB, everybody, how can we all further this conversation so that we can have this Jamaica country that we love become more abundant, so that we can have and have our children have as well a successful future. So make sure you join us August 13th, this Thursday, same time, 1 o'clock. And I am looking forward to hearing them, and I want to see you out as well. All right. So thank you so much for being here with me, and have an absolutely amazing day. All right. Take care. Oh, let me see first. Were there any comments? Hold on. I am going to make sure that I address your comments. You see that? Okay, so Jermaine says true words. Absolutely, Jermaine, you're the winner of our what are you doing in your business right now in COVID times. So congratulations again. And then Andreen Douglas says very informative. Thank you so much. So make sure you tune in again this Thursday, and I will make sure that I don't run off without looking at the comments. All right, take care, everybody. Have a good evening. Bye.